Vive la résistance!
Hello and welcome to another Hearts of Iron 4 dev diary. This one is slightly unexpected because we were hit with an update to the game for 1.8 Fork, not Husky, as this is a preemptive update covering some minor balancing changes to the game, but mainly allowing for Paradox to add in a new launcher. So I thought before we talk about some quick dev diary stuff they've covered over the past 2 weeks, we'll take a look at some of the changes. I mean, the first one is blindingly obvious, with now these buttons at the bottom for quick access. We'll just skim through them and list them off as they are. The key change with the update of Fork to the game is to balance Submarines, which were basically one of the strongest naval units in the game, if not the only naval unit that people bothered building. To combat this, they've made everything more expensive about them as far as I can tell. They've reduced the chances that they're going to fight convoys by modifying how convoys work over travelling long distances. They've decreased the damage on their torpedoes, and generally made them just worse compared to destroyers, but something tells me they're still pretty decent all things considered. I'll have to let you decide for yourself. They've also updated radar for tiers 3 and 4, giving it some good sub-detection here and here. I've never particularly experimented too much with radar because it always felt like something only Britain dealt with, so maybe if you're struggling with submarines, maybe worth a look. And the only change in regards to a focus tree or anything that is sort of tangible on a literal scale is the Dominion of Canada's focus tree adding aluminium plus 14 to the Aluminium Company of Canada. I have no idea why this was such a priority, but I guess Canada's players rejoice. Now, something I'm quite interested in is the tags they've added that you can use in debug mode. So here's one. If you type in tag colour, then the country, we'll go with Canada, and then a series of numbers. You need 3 to differentiate on the RGB scale, so let's just go 1, 1 and 1. This should turn Canada pretty much black. And there it is. And I'm sure you could do the same for many colours. Let's just add in some random numbers. 75, 145 and 90. And now it's green. So you can change the colour of any country you want. You can also use a new command called release, and then any tag, to release the country. I am a little bit disappointed they didn't cover some of the other bugs that had previously been brought up about this about the game currently. One of them being that in the Mexico focus tree, the Catholic politics focus doesn't give you the right portrait for Luis Maria Martinez down at the bottom there. Unfortunately, it gives you some particularly odd character. This lad, to be precise. Okay, and here we are looking at the new launcher. So this is generally speaking what we should get used to, as this is the idea to create all launchers to kind of have one team behind them. That's the core consensus as to why this has happened. So you get a positive feature in that there's a resume button to carry on with your last playthrough, which is, I'd say, borrowed from the Total War campaign launchers, where you could just continue the campaign. I am not a fan of the way they've done the DLC because now, sorry, should I say the mods, because now you can't see all of them with a scroll. You have to click Manage Mods and scroll down to find what you need. This does come with a trade-off in that you can move them up and down when you need to, but having that accessibility list is less convenient, which means you need to organise them yourself now if you want to use them. For those people who are interested, the Clear User Directory or Cache button is still here, it's at the bottom. For those of you who are struggling with using mods, there is a key component that once you've downloaded the launcher, you have to click play, launch the game to its game menu, close the game, and then you can reactivate your mods. If you download the launcher and start up with all your mods, it's not going to work. So make sure you just play the game in its base state the first time you download the launcher to get it to work. Okay, now let's go look at some dev diary notes.
Vive la résistance!
Okay, hello and welcome back to the other part of the dev diary where we're talking about last week's dev diary and some additional notes. We'll be going over it quite quickly because I think most of it is pretty self-explanatory. Coming in, we've got Operatives. Now, Operatives are going to be recruited and acquired the same way you would with Admirals and Generals. Initially you only get to pick from 3, but as time goes on and with upgrades to your agency, in a video I covered last time, you can see how you can get more of them. In the same way as generals, they also come with traits, of course much different traits. To list them, the ones we've got here, we've got Tough, Natural Orator, Seducer, Commando, Double Agent and Master Interrogator. One of the more interesting ones is Double Agent, which allows them to work better in the country of origin which they originally came from, which ties into a secondary mechanic they come with, nationality. Operatives can have at least one nationality, which gives them a buff to operating in their homeland origins, which essentially means that if you're playing as England and you get a German operative, they will be able to work in both United Kingdom and Germany for additional buffs. I just hope that it works in the inverse, in that if you send, for example, the whitest agent in the world, Adolf Weber, to Saudi Arabia, he's going to have a little hard time blending in with the local people. But I guess we'll find out when it comes. Missions are the next part of the Dev Diary, which covers what you're going to do with these operatives. Now, in the same way as generals again, you can order them to work in different areas with these key buttons. The first one being counterintelligence, which is essentially just stick them on home defense or try and counter any people that are working against you. The next one is build network, which I think is quite interesting because it reminds me of Crusader Kings 2. Where you could send a spy master to go work in enemy lands to help with your justification of war against them. So I wonder if there could be a methodology to stick in a new Justify War Goal claim using spies later on. But I don't know if we will. In the meantime, building up a network in a territory gives them reduction of naval invasion penalty, counters enemy dig-in or entrenchment as well as their planning. Your divisions get faster planning once they arrive there. I think there's a kind of general idea that this is supposed to help you as England on D-Day. I cannot think of anything that gives you more buffs to help you with D-Day than building a network in France. Some other things we're dealing with is quiet network, which is where you can basically hide away if you want to keep your operative silent and out of sight so he's not murdered by any other operatives. And then we've got a sad one, boost ideology. I believe they're getting rid of the boost ideology command that you could do in base game Hoi 4 using political power, and instead you're going to have to use it with an operative who is skilled in this degree. This could mean the death of "please boost me, I'm hungry" in chat and some things like this. It could be the end of an era. Propaganda, which means that missions can be used to hurt a nation's stability and war support, is another mission you can do, which is a big deal if you're sticking agents in America, because a lot of their focus tree requires them to have 30% war support. So you could potentially stop them from waking up the giant. Think about it. Rooting out resistance is pretty self-explanatory. If you're playing as Germany, you conquer France, you want to root out the resistance, so that's what they'll do. Control trade is a very interesting one that I like for miners because it allows countries like Sweden or Bolivar's Empire or Malaysia to ensure that they are the country that is sending out the most resources to their countries using their operatives. I think it's like a secondary diplomatic method. So I think that just adds more fun to play with miners. No complaints from me, big fan. Diplomatic pressure is another one that can help with miners because generally speaking, whenever you're going as a fascist country, any AI you try to get into a faction with will usually say, would rather be part of the Axis. So using diplomatic pressure, your operatives can help a country make them want to join your faction more than any other ones. Although I'm wondering whether the modifier will be good enough to stop them from getting like a plus 200 would rather be part of the Axis demodifier. We quickly got a tidbit about defense, in which that when you sick up some homeland defense, you'll get the base value of 2, and by adding on 2 operatives that you can have, as seen here, +1 and +2, they stack to create the big number in green, 5. However, we don't really know much about counterintelligence other than it's a big green shield with the number 5. Thanks, Paradox. Now, if you should fail and your operative gets captured, there are 3 things that can happen generally. They can be forced underground or injured, which is essentially like your general has fallen sick and they leave for a bit and come back. They can be captured, which basically means they're gone for good, unless you can get another operative to form a mission to go recapture them, which could be interesting. And then there's the sad event that they're murdered horribly. Or perhaps you've got some suicide pills and ensured they got murdered horribly. One way or another, there could be a good chance your ace operatives are murdered horribly. Okay, let's go on to next week's Dev Diary. Okay, after briefly going over all the things you can do with those operatives, including the death of the boost ideology button, we got to see that this week the new focus tree navigation tools, which is essentially the ability to zoom in and out of focus trees, to filter out what kind of focuses you want to go for. So we can see here political, research, industry, manpower. So if you're specifically looking for your research slot focuses, there's a button to find them. And there's a search bar, which allows you to literally just search up the focus. Now this isn't quite what I thought would happen, because originally there's an issue with the search bar that you might not know the name of every single focus in the game. You won't know what you're looking for until you've sort of found it. So unless there's a specific subcategories they might add in, such as maybe communism, because this bar here is only at the top, you could scroll down and there could be many more things, including where are all the fascist focuses? I'm a bit concerned. But generally this filter bar seems to be pretty decent, all things considered. Here we can see a massive zoom out where you can see most of the Chinese focus tree at about half the scale. So basically, focus trees, more usability tools. Good one. Okay, that's everything. New launcher, I gave it a solid 5 out of 10. It definitely could use some improvement. I definitely think they need to rework how mods work. And for those people who are asking when the DLC is releasing, it's definitely not releasing until like the second quarter of next year. So I wouldn't expect anything yet. We still haven't got the Portugal focus tree released. Oh, and make sure to subscribe and like the video if you haven't done already. It's what keeps this channel going, I promise you. Alright, bye-bye for now.